Welcome to Relative Mentality. I am Jack,
I am Joe.
and we are not here to be therapists. We are here to be family. And today we are giving the language on holidays.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm so glad we're doing this now. I think I said this in the last episode. Like, I'm so glad because I don't think it necessarily gets talked about enough how stressful the holidays can be. I think people talk about the holiday stress in general, but not necessarily like all of the external factors or the factors outside of just the holiday itself that can sort of make these times more stressful and a more emotional time, right? Those can be a lot more positive emotions, excited, especially Christmas. People get so full of, I don't know, positivity and joy and like, oh, yeah, it's so exciting and the lights and all of those things. But there's also a plethora of not so great emotions that come not just because of the holidays, but because of the literal season.
And we definitely talked about a lot of it in the last episode. And I would, I know I'm biased, but I would recommend watching that one as well, just to kind of see what we talked about in regards to even things that we've experienced, because there is a lot of stress. And I feel like it's not talked about a lot in regards to sincerity or with sincerity, because it's always like, oh, here's this rom-com or funny comedy but how like the holidays are so stressful. Ah, and it's like, no, people literally want to kill themselves sometimes. Like, and that's not even in a levity type of way either. Like, legitimately, it can get so overwhelming that it's just there's some people feel like there's not and I guess it's kind of fucked of me to just throw suicide out in the first like minute, but it's one of those things that because you're having to deal with this allegedly joyous time or having to do all of these things, you have to often feel like at least you're betraying your actual emotions. And
Mm,
so it's like, oh yeah, I mean everyone's stressed, and it's like, oh, that's not actually helpful, like especially when you put it so flippantly like that. I'm like, now, if you grabbed me by both sides of my head and said, everyone's stressed, it's okay. You like, just like head to head, like, warriors together. It's like, we'll get through these fucking holidays. Then I'd be like, yes, you get it. Instead of just like, oh, everyone's stressed. What are you stressed about? Because the food
yeah.
wasn't perfect? That's okay. No one eats it anyways. It's like, all right. Sorry.
Well, I
Apparently, things
get
are
it.
more triggering for me in this episode than I anticipated. Yeeks.
It's like the idea, like we think about the story of the Grinch, right? Which is
Mm.
like he's got all this stuff that he's putting between him and Christmas to try to, I don't know, protect himself and like all this anger and stuff like that. And if he just, when he just opens his heart to Christmas, it grows three times the size, right? And so it's like that same thing to us a bit, where it's like, you're not happy, like just open your heart to the joy of Christmas. Just open
Yeah.
your heart to the joy of this time we're spending together as a family and how thankful we should be because of it. And it's like, okay, it's not that my heart isn't willing to be open to the joy, it's that my heart is buried under all of these other aspects or other feelings that are making this really difficult. So it's like invalidating when people try to make it sound like if you just tried harder, you could enjoy the holiday, you could enjoy the season, as opposed to really recognizing like here's all the reasons why there's this stress and this weight on my heart.
So receiving that is invalidating, but then also you have, or at least I've experienced guilt on top of it, where it's like, okay, well, I don't want to bring the vibe down. So now I
Mm,
have to like mask, I have to cover up. And it's just like, okay, and to be very clear, we're not just talking about Christmas. This is also, especially in like the US, this time of year, later in the year, you've got Thanksgiving as well. But then there's also a handful of other things like New Year's and then, Lunar New Year and all sorts of different things where all of a sudden you're now seeing people that you normally don't see. Again, can be great, also stressful.
Mm.
because it's like, okay, I want to make sure I want to talk to everybody that I get to talk to, or, oh, I don't want to talk to that person, but I'm going to have to talk to that person. And so then
Yeah.
having to mentally prepare and kind of navigate your own emotions, but then your emotions and all that around other people as well. We talked about it a little bit, but there is definitely something to be said about the consumerism aspect of it. Obviously, yes, the buying of the gifts or the buying of the food, it's very expensive. We talked about in the last episode where it like can even put you into debt, or there's the guilt of not being able to afford everything that you want to afford, whether it's for your kids or family. But there's also just the aspect of like, you see these commercials, everyone's happy. You
Mm.
see these movies, everyone's happy. Even in the, dramatic ones, they still, have a great Christmas. Even in the fucking Grinch where the guy's like, fuck Christmas. At the end, he's like, but I love Christmas and I love everybody.
Right.
And it's just like, well, I guess I'm going to be Scrooge McDuck over here and bah humbugging all you hoes because I don't want to. It's almost overwhelming to try to give yourself grace because it feels like you have to give yourself grace on everything, but that's
Mm.
okay if you need to. And
Yeah.
I feel like the end of the year there is such a, through consumerism and then through everything you're seeing in the media, this selflessness that's projected. And it's like, honestly, this is almost the time to be selfish, where it's like, yes, you're going to make food, you're going to buy the gifts, you're going to whatever, but also check in, make sure that
Yeah.
you're okay. And again, if I'm overstepping and you're like, actually, I'll be like, oh, my bad.
I mean, low key,
Oh,
this is
no.
this is what I would say. No, I wouldn't call it selfishness, right?
Mm,
There is a difference between taking care of yourself and understanding that yourself has needs and being selfish. Being selfish is where we are basically saying, fuck everybody else and their needs. I don't care. Mine are the only ones that matter. Right. But taking care of ourselves is an investment in our ability to be selfless. If I am not taking care of myself, then I cannot do all of these things for other people. I think that's a huge thing I hear all the time, which is any sort of self-care, any sort of taking care of yourself gets reflected back as selfishness. And it's like, nah, man, you're just doing the bare minimum to make sure you can survive and do the things that you need to do so you're not constantly running on empty while still trying to challenge yourself to be selfless in all of these ways.
great. I love that I learned that I'm going to have something to unpack with my therapist later.
Woo! There we
Right,
go.
right. Mental health train, let's go. But that's
Yes.
the thing is that you're like, no, you're not actually selfish. And I'm like, well, all right, I'll try to be open to that. And I'm like, thanks for that. But yeah, definitely go sit on that for a minute and like take that
Well,
in.
another thing that I don't think came up last time that had just come to me is like also social media and the way that
Mm,
it presents how we should be spending holidays. So, as you sort of mentioned before, we were raised Catholic. We are Christian coded for our holidays, and I can't speak to whether like Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, any other sort of pagan celebrations, whatever. I don't know what kind of like weight or pressure or expectation or like financial what we put into it. Like I don't know what that looks like. But certainly with regards to things like Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, which isn't religious, but New Year's, Valentine's Day, you see these content creators going above and beyond, doing all of these things, making all this stuff from scratch, having their family in their perfect, matching pajamas, sitting around a fire, like, eating all these homemade cookies that we all made together, and this really like curated view of what celebration and holidays look like, and that can even be birthdays, but like celebrations and holidays and what they look like, that what we learned from the media, what we learned from TV and stuff growing up is just being like shoved in our face by other humans who are telling us that they're a working mom who has time to do all of these things, which is not to say that they're not, but like we don't always take into consideration the content creation piece of it. Like the reason they can afford to do all of these things, the reason they maybe have time to do all of this is because this is their main source of income, right? Or they work a part-time job and do this. So that's never going to look the same as a single mom who's working 3 jobs. Whether it's time or finances, whatever it is that's going to be a barrier to that. And so then we get this idea like I'm letting my family down. Or even maybe our kids are seeing that on social media. I mean, hopefully not too young kids are on socials, but like even your teenager maybe is like, why don't we do all of these things? How come our house doesn't look like this? Why didn't I get gifts like that person got? That content creator got a $5,000 purse for Christmas, and that was one of 15 gifts. Like, why didn't I get those things? So there's this added layer of pressure because we see normal people doing a level of performativeness or a level of like investment in it that most of us don't have the ability to actually be putting that much into us. What ultimately comes down to a single day. There are 300, Christmas is
Unless it's
one day.
Hanukkah. I'm not
Unless
sure
it's
about Kwanzaa, but
okay. Yes.
yes.
I mean, I guess some of the celebrations are multiple days again, but like Christmas is one day, Thanksgiving, one day. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess we could argue that there are, like, religiously, there are things that make it multiple days. But for the majority of people, they're just having the holiday that's one day. And if you put all your time and money into that, like that in and of itself can be detrimental to you and your mental well-being, but you're doing it because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And the problem is the Joneses aren't just the people next door anymore. The Joneses are all the social media influencers who are living very different lives in very different places and who are probably making money from the content they're making and having that sort of put into our face. So is every year it's like upping the level of like what is expected of us
Mhm.
too when it comes to holidays. So much, so many things, gifts, socializing, food prep. There's just holidays, family events come with lots of expectations, and sometimes those are overwhelming. A lot of times those are overwhelming.
With what you're saying too, there is a level, and I think you somewhat touched on it, but like a level of guilt where like
Mm,
food prep is a great example where, we talked in the last episode, your mom, if there was a birthday happening around a holiday for the family thing, she was making a cake as well as a side dish, and the amount of love and time that takes to do all of that, it's not nothing. And so it's like for, the single mom who's working the 3 jobs, she doesn't have time. But if she's going to a family gathering or friend gathering and all she can bring is, store-bought cookies, there's potentially some shame, judgment, whatever from the people around her, or even what she thinks would be shame and guilt from other people because that's all she could afford to do was go get something on the way, you know.
mm,
And it's like, oh, everyone could do store bought or homemade, but I had to do store bought. We talked about like the positives, in the last episode, and it's like looking at the positives of that, it's like you still got to spend time with those people. They're not going to be like, oh man, fuck that bitch, she brought store bought cookies. Like,
yeah.
and also if they talk shit, get they don't need to be in your life. Like, get surround yourself with people that love you in any capacity that you're able to give.
There's a lot of pressure that comes from, especially on mothers, but
Mm-hmm.
on parents of any gender, about like showing up for their kids. So also like we're having the holiday party at school and I'm bringing the store-bought cookies when Bethany's mom made a whole gingerbread house and chocolate fountain and like I don't know whatever
But she
sort of
made
thing.
sure that it was gluten free and free of peanut butter because the kids have
Right,
allergies at the school, and it's just like
right.
you're
And they're
gonna
like,
have
oh,
this where it was cross contaminated. You'll survive, and it's like, well, okay.
yeah, like you brought those cookies from Kroger. Again, this like pressure of comparison and keeping up with whoever that person or that family that we're comparing ourselves to. Or it might just be the neighbor with their lights. Like maybe your neighbor puts up a whole big, amazing light display every year. And you're like, I don't even know when I would have time to like go and do that. And I think back to my mom again, she lost. I mean, I guess it depends on it, how you consider it. To me, it seems like she lost hours, days putting up all of the decorations that had to be up. This woman who's in her late 40s, early 50s, crawling around on our roof, putting up all of the Christmas lights that she wants up. And the only person there is me, like a teenager watching TV inside. So I could hear if she tumbled off the roof. But like, like putting putting herself in like a dangerous situation and losing her whole Saturday to putting up these lights. Did it bring her so much joy to see those lights that it was worth it? I mean, that I can't speak to, but there's got to be a limit of that, of how much effort and time are we putting into things that are going to be either done in a snap. Again, how often was she really seeing the lights on our roof?
Yeah.
To bring herself joy when she pulled in at the end of a full day of work before she had to come in and do the other stuff she's got to do. How much could she really appreciate those things?
I want to, you talking about that though made me think of something. So my partner is not a big fan of Christmas, and I typically love Christmas. I love
Woo!
decorating for it.
I just
Yeah, yeah.
realized I love him even more now.
Well, that's the thing is, I love decorating for it. I love putting up the Christmas tree. I love all sorts of things about it. Last year, we got married later in the year. And so, and also to kind of like be budget friendly or conscious and all that, I made a lot of decorations and stuff for that. And so by the time Christmas came around, I was like, I don't want to do fucking shit. I don't want to have to
Yeah,
put shit up to take it back down. I'm tired. Like
yeah.
I don't want to do anything. He had made a comment of, whether or not I was going to put the Christmas tree up. And I said, I don't know. I don't really feel like it. And it wasn't a matter of, oh, well, you're failing me as a wife or whatever because you're not putting the Christmas tree up. It was more he was able to check in and say, hey, you good? You're usually
Mm,
chomping at the bit to put this shit up, and yet,
yeah.
it's not the case. That's another thing too, where it's like the people in your life, they'll know how to respond when they see things that's a little bit off. He was kind of like, it's nice to have that stuff. I'm like, yes, I'm winning the Christmas war just a little bit. That's the thing, is it's like, yes, it brings me joy, but also understanding that it doesn't always bring everyone joy. And we
Mm,
talked about the fact that, with your mom passing and then me going no contact with my dad in the last episode, we were talking about how that impacts how we kind of feel about the holidays. It's there is that is a part of it. But there's that aspect of it too, where it's like not only the parties or the get-togethers themselves, but then the lack of people, or even traditions. We've talked about in the past where, you know, once our grandma passed, there definitely was a shift within the family. And anybody who says they didn't feel it, they're full of themselves. And talk to me outside, catch me outside. How about that? It can be hard, and then you're supposed to be joyous, and it's like, but that seat used to be grandma's, or that seat used to be X, Y, and Z's person seat, and they're not going to be here this year. And what
mm,
Harlan is going to sit in that seat this year? Like it's hard because you're supposed to, I'll put it that way.
yeah.
Societally, whatever, there's the expectation of, oh, you're happy. You're seeing people that you don't see that often. Or I also just spent a shit ton of time making food. I'm mentally drained from having to work, okay, all masked to like be, so that I don't have to answer 1,000 questions of like, why are you sad? but that's still
Mhm.
emotionally draining to do all that socializing and
Yeah.
kind of mentally faking it.
Hmm. And I think sort of what you're talking about here is like the inflexibility of it, right? This
Mhm.
idea that things have to look a certain way, they should be a certain way. And when we get caught in that inflexibility, then it can be really difficult to give ourselves the grace of, okay, maybe this year I can't get the tree up, but that doesn't mean we can't celebrate Christmas. But
Oh
because
yeah.
the tree is so connected to Christmas, like there is no Christmas without the tree, right? But we know, like, no, that's not really what the celebration is. And so these ideas of what things should look like, or how, or traditions, how they have always been, and then the idea of things being different, that mental flexibility can be really difficult for people, especially when we're seeing other people who are not having to be flexible, other people who can still do all of the things and make everything quote unquote perfect for their family.
And you talking about that made me think about the fact, and this is kind of overall, but like having the conversation of watching people get older in your life. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, they wanted to be able to do these traditions, but they can't get up the ladder or they can't, do all of the things. So, and it's like, they want to, but they can't. And you don't live close, so you can't help them,
Yeah.
and just because there's the whole inflexibility of like, this is what we do every year. And they're like, why didn't Mima do that? She always does this for the grandkids. And it's like, well, because Mima's tired. Her hip
Yeah.
was bad this year. She can't do fucking shit. Let Mima rest. But like looking at mortality, you have to kind of
Yeah.
face that a little bit of like, wow, I knew she was old, but she's really getting up there. When you see people you care about begin to slow down, and you kind
Mm.
of see that with the slowing of the traditions or the lack of traditions, it then that mortality, because you think they're unstoppable, you think there's, they'll bounce around for forever, and then all of a sudden you're like, fuck, they can't. Oh no. And
Yeah.
that gets scary, and so that's definitely sad.
So I do want to talk further about like loss,
Sorry.
but I no, it's fine. It's just I have a couple like little note things that I keep next to my
Yeah, yeah,
desk. And one of them, I don't know if you can see it.
that's amazing.
Tradition is pressure from dead people. And that's actually something the client said to me, which is why it goes up on my client wall. Traditions are this like bring all of this pressure that it, and make it more difficult for flexibility. We talked in the last episode, we used to have family gatherings of 90 people. And these days, the family gatherings look more like 30 or 40 people. And that's really disappointing for some of the older people in our family because the tradition of having the big Christmas or having the huge Thanksgiving has gotten uh, not as not as set in stone as it used to be, whether that's because our grandma passed or just like the fact that we're all getting older and there's a freaking million of us and it's hard to gather that many humans at one time. But, it can, I think about how sad one of our aunts, I think all of our aunts and uncles, but like one aunt in particular who's really expressed over the last few years being very sad about losing some of that connection that our family used to have, and having people show up and having people talk, or having all the cousins get together to buy a gift for someone's wedding or something like that. And I think it's really hard for her to let go of some of those traditions. It comes from a great place, right? She loves us
Mhm.
and she wants us to all stay. She wants to hold us all so close. But it also is that inflexibility that's like really beating her down and making her really, really crappy about the way it looks now versus sort of accepting, like, hey, 30 or 40 people is still a shit ton compared to most families. And considering how many of us there are, that's still a pretty decent percentage sort of thing, right?
Oh
So again,
yeah.
there's these ways that tradition ties us down to and like perpetuates sadness when we cannot be flexible about the ways that those change.
I think to some degree, especially when it comes to holidays, though, it's I think there can be something tied around tradition though, where it's like, well, we always have this. So like if the rest of your year is shit or the month prior was shit, you're like, fuck yeah, I got this tradition coming up. It's gonna be great. And
Yeah.
then it doesn't. And then you're like, this was my last thing that I was holding on to hope for.
Yeah.
Oh no. And
Yeah.
so there are things about tradition that can absolutely be awesome. You'd be
Yeah.
like, this is something our grandmother did with her kids, and then our parents passed it down to us. I so look forward to passing this down to my kids. And then there's sometimes where it's like, that's a pretty fucked up tradition. Let's stop the buck here. Like let's not do that. And then there's the happy medium where traditions can evolve, where it was like, okay, this isn't conducive to the times now because, even with our family, and part of the issue is that all of the cousins, once we got older, a lot of us moved away.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're not 10 minutes down the road, how it like used to be that coming together for a holiday was, super simple.
Yeah.
It's
Not
like,
everybody lives in Ohio anymore.
right.
You said problematic traditions or like traditions that are like,
Uh,
I the first thing that came to my mind was at weddings.
uh-huh.
So this is a little different, but weddings, the dollar dance.
For those who might not know, because this wasn't a tradition within your family, a dollar dance is at the reception. From my understanding of how it would go is you would have the bride and the groom on the floor by themselves, like they wouldn't be dancing with each other, and then you could pay $1 to dance with them throughout a song for a small amount of time. The whole concept is you're help paying and giving them money towards their honeymoon.
I don't know exactly what it was supposed to be. My point is, it's kind of like an
Yeah.
outdated thing that
Oh yeah.
when I was getting married, which was only a few years ago, it kind of came up like, is there a way to do it that's not weird? Like that could still feel good. And I remember my husband very specifically being like, nah, no, it's like a weird thing. And I'm like, but it's tradition because I grew up watching your mom run the dollar dance at all the weddings.
Traditions, I know we got a little sidetracked, but it's like it's okay for them to evolve too,
Yeah.
or and it's also okay to mourn the tradition, the loss of it,
Mm,
where it's like, yeah, grandma used to do this or your mom used to do that, and we don't have those people to do those things anymore. There's no one else to, take up the mantle, or no one wants to, you
yeah.
know?
Or even if there is someone to take up the mantle, like it's not quite the same, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, like, my mom would do the gift exchange, she would do the newsletter, whatever. And now, like, yes, we have an uncle that's doing the newsletter, and then there's a cousin who's sort of doing the gift exchange. And so, like, the roles are being covered by other people. But, one, people who didn't have to do this stuff before for decades, my mom did this. So, like, no one else had to do it. But also, like, there's a different vibe, right? Like, and this is not, if Bam is listening, like, this is not me like hating on the people who took over, because bless them for doing, you know, recognizing what was going on with my mom and that she needed the assistance to take over. And, now that she's passed, obviously she can't do it. I'm not getting out a Ouija board just so she can do the gift exchange. And it's not to say they're doing it wrong or doing it bad or anything like that, but like it's different, right?
Because it's like the
It's
gift
different.
exchange used to be slips of paper in a Tupperware that she'd
That
shake, and then you pulled it out and then she wrote it down on a notebook. Versus, again, like you said, no shade, no tea to the current cousin who's handling it. I think it's actually quite clever to be able to do it online.
Yeah.
To be able, because it's like there are plenty of people, and this is something that was actually an issue with your mom and the pulling of the paper out of the Tupperware is, people who are mostly out of state but then come in for the holiday. How the fuck are they going to pull a piece of paper? So she would just be like, I pulled it out for you, it's this person. Versus
Right.
through online, this has now solved that issue, that people
Mm-hmm.
can just put their name on, they put it randomizer, and they're like, now you've got X person. which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
So, like, sometimes letting go of those traditions can be positive, but like you said, there can also be grief for it. There can be a
Mhm.
sense of loss for what is different or what we don't have anymore. And that does not have to, there's so many different ways grief can creep into the holidays. Yay. It can creep in because of change, tradition, change. It can creep in because of actual loss, like people who we no longer see, speak to, people who have passed. It can creep in because of just like distance wise, like it's not feasible for us to be able to spend the holidays together because you live in a different state, country, whatever. Maybe there are things from previous holidays that were hard and have gotten into your mind that like are grief about things that have happened. I think you said this in the last episode, but you know, the self-harm and suicide rates tick up a lot in December. Um, and so like maybe there is an actual loss that happened around that time, but it could also be like my mom died in May, but her birthday is the 2nd of December. That brought up some things, or the fact that she just wasn't there, like that brought up things. So there's all these different ways that like grief and loss can creep in, but again get sort of invalidated because this is the joyful time of the year. This is when we're supposed to be happy and light and bright. And we should all be like the Who's down in Whoville. And none of us should be like that mean old Grinch until he becomes like the Who's again. Yay! Right? So it's like this that pressure. Again, like if you have this grief and loss, that that's fine. You can feel that, but don't let that seep into the holidays or these gatherings or those feelings.
Or or it's even, we talked about this in the last episode, but like where I much prefer them, whomever, to be like, oh, why are you being such a buzzkill, or don't be such a Grinch, versus, oh, like what's going on? Like you're kind of being a buzzkill. Like what do you need to talk about? It's like, girl, this is Christmas dinner. We do not need to talk about what's bringing me
Not
down.
the time.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
bringing the vibe down, but I know you're coming from a genuine place. Not the time. Not the time.
Yeah.
And also, you're not the person I want to talk to about this. So I'll do better at masking. I'm very grateful and very lucky that I have some family, aka my mom, who comes down around Christmas time, and I've been very fortunate to have that. When I first moved down here, there was a lot of adjustments, and especially around the holidays, where it was like, I didn't have the big traditional family, and I couldn't fly back or drive back for the big traditional family stuff. And it definitely can feel a little bit isolating, just kind of knowing I'm not going to be able to go to the farm this year for Christmas. I've got my found family, I've got my actual family, and I also now have my partner's family. And it's like trying to bounce all of that to make sure that I see everybody and I talk to them and all of that. And that's actually where it gets more of the stressful side of it all instead of depressing,
Mm,
because obviously you need to be very grateful about that. You need to be grateful. That's society saying you need to be
thank you.
grateful.
Thank you.
um yeah, I
I love it
realize
when you
it's,
correct yourself.
yeah, yeah, it's like, and I'm like, this is why therapy is good. All of the emotions, because there is joy too, but then there's the depression of like, well, I shouldn't be feeling happy because of X, Y, and Z reason, or I should be feeling happy, but I don't. And we talked about in the last episode of like giving grace and all of that. And I think that's so imperative to just life in general.
Yeah.
Like not even just the holidays, but especially during the holidays.
And you mentioned like feeling lonely and
Hmm.
and also the like really cognitive dissonance of feeling lonely in a room full of people, whether that's at a holiday party for work or a friend party or at your family party, right? Being in a room full of people and you're going through this stuff internally and you're there in a room full of people and feeling completely alone. During this time that is specifically about togetherness, You're
Yeah.
trying to be there, you're trying to be together, and you are disconnected. Again, there's these ways that our brains are so damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you stay at home by yourself, you feel lonely and that feels shitty. But if you go to the party, you also feel unseen and alone, and that feels shitty. Like, what do? There's no winning. Maybe you just feel alone. And that can be because of things outside of the holidays. Like, maybe it's just like other mental health stuff that is happening with you. Like you said, maybe the stress has just gotten so high that I'm like masking and dissociating and like overstimulated and can't be present for that reason. Maybe it's because of something that happened that is there in your memory. Our body keeps score, our body keeps count. If if something is like an annual thing that is difficult, like the holidays, our body starts to sort of tense and prep for the upcoming difficult thing that we have to do. So as soon as it turns November, like there's just a massive amount of buttholes that clench and are like, okay, it's the holidays. Like it's time, guys. So like everybody get ready. It can be seasonal affective disorder. That is basically you get depressed because there is not as much sunlight, is just the simplest way to put it. Um, because there is less sunlight and more darkness, especially if you live in the northern places, then your brain is going to create more melatonin and less serotonin. So serotonin is what our brain's supposed to create during the day to keep us up and keep us going. Not everybody's brains does that efficiently. Hi, my name's Joellen. But their melatonin is what's supposed to help us go to sleep. I'm sure most people have, seen like a doctor who's like, you can't sleep, take some melatonin. That's why. During the winter months, when the days are very short, our body naturally does not create them in a way that makes sense with the way we continue to live our lives. Because we don't just, oh, there's only 4 hours of daylight, so I'm only going to be up and doing stuff for 4 hours. No, we still have to go to work till 5 p.m., even though it got dark at 3. If I felt depressed because of seasonal affective disorder last year, and now we're coming to a new year, here's my body starting to clench, starting to feel worried, like, oh gosh, I hope that doesn't happen. The harm to ourself rates go up. That also means hospitalizations go up.
Mm.
And for people who have never been hospitalized for maybe any reason, but specifically mental health reasons, it's an institution, it's institutionalization. It is not fun. Most people do not leave like, oh, great, that felt so great. Like most people are leaving like, thank God, I hope I never have to be in that situation again. But okay, so you got burnt out last Thanksgiving and that led to a hospitalization. Now every Thanksgiving, you're getting worried. Oh gosh, will that happen to me again? Your mom's getting worried. Oh no, I hope that doesn't happen to my baby again. Your sister's getting worried. Like, man, I really want to be able to celebrate Christmas this year. I hope like my sister is okay, but also like she ruined it last year because she had to get hospitalized, right? Like there's all these different ways that it can affect everyone in the family when someone deals with that kind of mental health struggle. Yes, it can be seasonal affective disorder, it can be that depression, but it can also be the tensing for the repeat of maybe not so nice things that have happened in the past. Another really big thing that we don't maybe don't talk about is the lack of routine and schedule. We have all this
Mm.
time off during the winter months, which, when you're a kid, maybe is great because you're like, I'm going to play in the snow all day. And like, there are all these fun things. But especially as we start to get older, if you're someone with neurodivergence or some other mental health issue where structure and routine is really key to your stability and your mental health, then having a long weekend, okay, maybe having 2, 3 weeks off of school and work, what the hell am I going to do for that time? And I'm trapped at home with my family, and they're the reasons I feel so stressed. Or just like I don't have to get out of bed, so I'm not getting out of bed, and that's feeding into the depression. That's feeding into the mental health issues. So there's also a way that that lack of structure, that wonderful vacation that we get, can also for our people be really a negative for their mental health and their well-being. And when we think about how it is, again, I don't know everything about other religions. I was raised Christian, and so what I do know though is there's like a few um like Jewish holidays in like October, and they kind of go into the winter months a little bit, but then Hanukkah is not necessarily one of their high holidays. But again, they're having like all these breaks, right? So there's, depending on what school you're going to, you might be getting these breaks for Jewish holidays throughout October, and then we go into November and there's all these random breaks, and then we go into December and there's all of these random breaks. And so that's 3 solid months of you not being able to have a steady routine for more than a couple of weeks. That's a whole quarter, you know. That is a long time to be in a brain that is struggling. So those things can really be building up over this time as well and negatively affecting our mental health.
The way that my company functions and whatever else, like we just have a set amount of time that we can take off, and however you take it off in the year is your business type of thing. And it's like, looking at the end of the year, it's like, yes, you have your family's Thanksgivings and Christmases and, your partner's family's Thanksgiving and Christmases. But it's like, but then you have your friends' givings and your friends' Christmases and then the company Christmas parties and all of that. And it's like, I don't really have that much time to take off at the end of the year. These are all on the weekend, which is great, I guess. But now I can't use this time to clean. There's the routine that gets messed up because of the parties and the get-togethers, and that's great that I get to see these people. And I don't like, it's not like I resent that I get to see them because I don't get to see them often, but now I'm behind on my other routines. Of course, it's like all of the gatherings, it's like you're also taking the time to do food and whatever else, so that's your Thursday night, and so like for
Mm-hmm.
me that's the gym, or whatever. And so now I'm getting out of those routines, so then I'm feeling sluggish or whatever. And then of course, like you're typically eating more like junkier food. So it's like if you're on a sort of certain diet up until this point, you're like, oh, it's just the holidays. It's fine. What you eat does impact, and what
Mm-hmm.
you eat and what you drink impacts how your body can react and how it can feel. And so it's like, especially, and I don't know if we've talked about in this episode, but it's like around the holidays is when a lot of people start drinking more, whether or
Mm-hmm.
not it's just socially, or even if it's like a little bit more than even usual. It's like, and then you wake up and you're hungover as shit, and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna eat this shit ass food, and I'm gonna be on the toilet all day, but like, whatever. And it's like
Yeah.
that then will start feeding into, man, I feel like a piece of shit. There's a potential feedback loop that happens of, I'm supposed to be happy, I'm not happy, so I'm gonna drink a little bit more, eat some shittier food. Well, now I physically feel not great. Okay, I'm gonna keep not sleeping well and whatever else, and all of a sudden you're like, God, January's here. Ugh.
And like when you like mention the gym, I'm like, yeah, and that's probably like not just about taking care of your body, but that can be like taking care of your mind too, right? Like that can be a
Hmm.
coping skill. That can be a place for like relieving some of the tension and mental things that are happening too. And it also could mean what you're saying, like some unhealthy coping skills that maybe most of the year we can manage our unhealthy relationship with food that we grew up with. But then when we're at a family thing and every, aunt and uncle is like, oh, here, try this, try this. Did you eat? Eat more. Here, here. Oh, we're having a drink. Here, we're doing those things, right? And like things you've worked really hard to do better maybe go out the window. Or, like you said, I'm feeling stressed about this, so I'm gonna just like use the drinking. That's my unhealthy coping skill. Or I'm gonna just go get myself another cookie because
Well, and
that
let
makes
me
me
be
feel a
very
little bit
clear.
better.
I am delusional and I am a slut for deviled eggs. And I know our family loves, and so I'll eat,
Is
an
that why your
unhealthy
mom makes
amount.
them? Is that why your mom always makes them?
No, not
Oh,
necessarily, because I'm not the only one who eats them. Let me be very clear.
no, no, I
Like
know.
that's we got some aunts and uncles that get excited when mom makes them. Yeah, no, I love deviled eggs, and so I'll eat like six of them plus all the rest of my food. I'm like, that's three whole eggs.
Yeah,
And I'm like, and that's if I limit myself to six. Like, that's
yeah,
because I love deviled eggs. And I justify it and say, well, I don't ever eat them any of the rest of the year. It's like, how many times am I going to have deviled eggs? And then I'm like, oh, I feel bad.
yeah. I have such a sweet tooth, and I'm like a
Mm,
cookie slut, I guess. And it was especially bad when my mom, like when I was a teenager, my mom used to give cookies as gifts. So like
mhm.
all the people she worked with and whoever else, so she would make like those big like turkey pan, like foil turkey pans, like 8 of those pans full of cookies
Jeez.
that we would just like make plates from and give to people. So then, yeah, like that was not good for my complicated relationship with food, that there were a billion cookies there. And so there was more than once where I overindulged for sure in cookies and like made myself sick. And part of it was like I was coping, part of it was like when I was here, like there were lots of different things that went into it. But yeah, there are all these ways that maybe it's difficult to make the good decisions that the rest of the year might be a little bit easier to make.
Oh, yeah.
And the idea of like eating a lot, drinking a lot, being merry, like that is so connected with like Christmas, Thanksgiving, certainly overindulging or being restrictive. Like, again, this is why that kicks up. People with ED, like that kicks up during the holiday season because not only is it happening, but there's not an understanding for it.
For those, ED is eating disorder in this
Yes, sorry.
context.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
not
It's okay.
erectile dysfunction. I
Well,
mean,
not only that,
your erectile dysfunction might also be affected during the holiday season.
if
I'm
you
not
drink it
here
a
to say
lot,
it wasn't if
for,
you're drinking a lot, or
for
you're just
sure.
so full of turkey and whatever that is that makes you tired from turkey, and it's invalidated. It's not normalized. Oh, come on, it's Christmas. Why are you
Oh, yeah.
watching what you eat? It's Christmas. Oh, we've got all
Same
these
with
leftovers we have to get rid of. What were you
same
gonna
with
say?
drinking. Same with
Yeah,
drinking. It's like have a glass of wine, have a whatever. And it's like, especially if you're, female presenting or, what have you, and it's like you say no. It's like, "Oh, well, are you pregnant?" And it's like, first and foremost,
and
none of
then
your
we get
fucking
into this whole
business.
other problem. Yeah,
Right, right. And it's just like, especially if you go to, another family's, you're going to your partner's family or whatever, or even like a company thing, and it's like, oh, I don't want anything to drink. No, thank you. And it's like, oh, and there's like the whole like, are you recovering or,
yeah,
and it's like, again, none of your business. I mean, that's just like people, or it's like, oh, come on, like, don't be a prude, don't be a lame ass, like, it's just
yeah.
a drink. And it's like,
But that's like also, I mean, this could be a whole other episode to talk about like this country and our relationship with alcohol, and unfortunately that's all too common that if someone says, "No, I don't want to drink alcohol," that they really struggle with it. I'm like comfortable saying no, like I just don't drink,
mhm,
that's not my thing. But there are so many people who do not feel comfortable saying that
mhm.
and do feel pressured to, if we're going to hang out with friends, if we're going to go to a party, if we're whatever, that we kind of have to drink. And if we do not drink, then people are going to ask questions, or it's going to mean this. Or they have people that again are like, come on, another shot, come on, come on, come on. So like holidays, family events, anything like that can be a really tough time for, yeah, anyone who has issues with food or alcohol, because there's so much of it that is based around that.
we talked about it a little bit earlier about like accepting your feelings around things and whatever else. If someone wants to think you're a lame ass for not doing X, Y, and Z, then let them. It,
Yeah.
like that is something that is out of your control, and especially with the holidays, there are the expectations of like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. Okay, well, you made a shit ton of mashed potatoes for the family gathering, and you are unfortunately clumsy and you drop them all, and you have to leave. And it's like, okay, well, I can at least grab potato chips or something on the way, so I'm not empty-handed, but I'm not going to give them floor potatoes, and that's
All
right.
right.
Well, they'll be like, oh, it's seasoning.
You scrape the part that's not touching the floor.
Of course, of course. I guarantee everyone will now look sideways at like your
Yep.
cheesecake and be
No
like,
one's gonna eat my
interesting.
food anymore.
Right. No, but that's so funny. But that's the thing is it's like it's also time to kind of look and focus on the positives, but like also look at the things you can control. The kids are going crazy right now. You know what? I could be upset. I'm not gonna. And I talked about in the last one, it's like, you know what? Find the small positive. Like, my pants are comfy as hell. Or, my lipstick is a perfect shade and I was a shot in the dark and it's new and it's great. I'm going to accept the fact that I don't want to have alcohol. I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. If they want to think whatever about me or even talk shit about me, that's their business, that's their prerogative. But I know where I'm at personally, and I'm going to be comfortable with that. and
Right.
and that's a whole thing of that could be a whole episode of like self-care, self-understanding, and just really being secure in how you feel, so that when you go into these familial times where it can feel chaotic, you can at least be grounded within yourself.
The let them mentality, right?
Yeah.
Um, and something I don't know that we've really touched on, but just like a moment to it. Family, family. Blood is thicker than water, right? Like that's the old saying. And
Uh-huh.
so when we think about what binds a family together, it's a bunch of people who, frankly, would not choose each other to be friends with, who are being held together by these very thin bloodlines. So it's something that is very weak, it looks like, but for some reason is very strong holding us together. Like it's a very important thing that holds us together. So there's also that, like that sort of feeling of responsibility, or I'm supposed to like my family, I'm supposed to spend this time with them. And so then we feel pressured into going places or doing things we don't really want to do because they are family oriented, especially when it comes to like holidays and those things. We're tied together with our friends in much stronger rope that is created out of uh, things, common interests, activities we do together, all of the things that make you kind of who you are. And that's why we choose this family. This is why we bring those people close to us and wrap them up tight. And so it can be difficult for us to shift our brain to recognize, like, hey, maybe this chosen family, maybe this friend family, like, deserves more of you and deserves more of your time, because what's holding you to your biological family is, yeah, it's not, or it's not always that much.
Well, and I also want to address that as well, because I've had that phrase uttered at me a lot, to which I then would retort that the full phrase is
Mm,
blood of the coven is thicker than water of the womb, which is the exact opposite of when you paraphrase it.
I
And
didn't know
so,
that.
yes, so that is actually the real phrase in its entirety. And so it actually means your chosen family, the blood of the
Yeah.
coven, is thicker than the water of the womb. So that
Wow.
is, yeah. So isn't that crazy how people bastardize it and use it to guilt you to do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah,
Don't
that's
fall for that shit.
wild.
So, for all other listeners or watchers that don't know, that is actually what the full phrase is. So, if some family member comes to you with that fuck shit paraphrase, you uno reverse that hoe and enlighten them on what the full phrase is. Because there's a lot of toxicity, and especially when it comes to
Yeah.
holidays, they're going to use that. oh, well, you're going to go to this party with these people that you've only known for a year, but I'm your mother, which also my mother is not like that, but it's like, I'm your
Yeah,
mother. I carried you for 9 months. I've been your mother for 30 years. And it's like, yeah, and you beat the shit out of me or you guilt me all the
right.
time. Like, that's the thing that's wild to me, especially when it comes to parents with kids. I'm like, you had sex, and that's why I'm here. That does not necessarily say that you were a parent. Just because you have
Mm.
sex does not make you a parent.
So like I guess then we get to like how do we deal with it, which is sort of what we're talking about. And the first is, as you said, accepting your feelings and like being okay with it, trying to focus on the positive. That is great. Understanding the things that are outside of our control, right? The weather is outside of our control. The gravity is outside of our control if we drop those mashed potatoes, right? Like there are things that are going to happen that are outside of our control. But a really nice way to tie all of those things together is setting yourself up for success.
Like, depending on what they say, I'm like, that might not be ideal because then I'm like, because my anxiety always is like, okay, if you're ready, you're ready, and you nothing, and then I'm like, oh, and then the inflexibility happens because you're like, I set aside the fucking potatoes and I made them host for 2 hours and I spilled them. All of the places are closed, so I can't even buy instant. And then it's like, I didn't prepare for tripping. I should have prepared. I guess I should have had another bag of potatoes set aside just in case.
I feel where
Sorry.
you're going with that. But if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, right? So like if
Okay.
you are planning, you're like, the holidays are coming. I need to get my shit together and be prepared for like things I know are stressors. What are the stressors from previous years that I can probably list and be like, okay, how can I go through those and try to protect myself from them? The tripping, okay, maybe we just make sure you put a lid on your mashed potatoes before you leave. I don't know, like maybe there's something you can do there. Like maybe there's some action. Maybe it's making sure we have instant potatoes in case we do drop the potatoes. Right? We can prepare in some ways for those sorts of things. But it's also preparing like what am I going to do before? What am I going to do during? And what am I going to do after to cope and to support my well-being? So before, maybe I have everything organized. I made my list. Maybe that was something I could do to be helpful. Maybe it's before is just like saying a silent prayer and mantra to yourself, like, let these hoes, let them do it. Like, I'm not going to care. Let them, let them, let them. Like, reminding yourself of that you're going in with a let them vibe. Thinking about what is it that Uncle Bert always says that I know is going to be trying. What can I do in that situation? Right. So I know if politics come up at the table, I can get up and I can walk away. I can go out on the porch and like chill for a minute. I can lock eyes with my fave cousin and be like, me and you, let's ditch this place for a while. We could end up in the living room petting cats together while the rest of the family is doing their own thing. Maybe it's the overstimulation of it. So, like, maybe I need to bring my headphones, or I could have like some coloring, something I could do, planning all of these ways that you can cope. Going in, like in the moment, challenging yourself to use the coping skills you've thought of. Whether those are ones that have been specifically planned for this event or just your general coping skills. Like, okay, you can not probably have a good 20-minute meditation while you are at a family thing, but I can go to the bathroom for 5 or 10 minutes and just like be by myself, be in the quiet, sort of like calm my nervous system down, bring myself back down to myself. A good thing I suggest for like, if it's like you, your partner, your kids, and you're going to a bigger family thing, maybe you four as a family discuss what are our needs, what might we need to do to prepare. So then we have like a family code word where it's like Brussels sprouts and you know that means your kid needs to go take their time and you can go take your time. It's going on the cousin's walk. I feel like that's a common thing. Sometimes for the smoky smoke, but also for the just to get the heck out of there. I can go to, this other part of the house. I could go sit in the car for a while. Heck, I can be like, I gotta go to the gas station. I gotta go to the store real quick, right? Take a quick drive, get out of there, use those coping skills you've planned, but also using the coping skills that are just the general stuff you've been working on to be coping. And then this is a vital piece that I think people don't think of, which is what do I do after an event like this? Don't
Aftercare is
just
very important.
aftercare is so important. So, like, if you just have this day of stress, 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 and then you just go home, yeah, you're going to feel exhausted. But how can you feed back into yourself? How can you refill what you had to pour out? Let's say you're doing something on Christmas and then there's a with your family, and then on the 26th, there is a friend gathering you're going to. Okay, well, don't come home from Christmas on the 25th and have to make a pie for the 26th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Set yourself up for success. Let the dishes wait, right? Know that tomorrow on Boxing Day, we can try to like all do the dishes together or something. Go home, relax. Maybe that's when you give yourself the grace to be like, I am going to have a cheeky glass of wine. I am going to watch a show that I really like. I am going to do good things for myself that night and even into the next day. Where a lot of people probably get tripped up is thinking about the preparation as being just about the time that the event is going on, when really we are building up, preparing, and then figuring how to bring ourselves back down afterwards. That's how we can truly set ourselves up for success.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to work on that for me personally, just in general, because I was like, no, 110% my preparation is for whatever and not who gives a fuck. I just need to get through that thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm
Again,
like, that's good. It's good to call and note. I'll have to work on that.
yeah. Again, like I think that's what stresses a lot of people out like before an event is that like staying up and cooking all night and like
Hmm.
really putting all of this like work into preparing stuff for the next day that then you're so exhausted you can't enjoy or you just can't do the things you need to cope during
Hmm.
that day, right? Or we get caught up in the like responsibilities of it or the expectations of it. Well, I can't just like leave. I can't just like walk out. Like, yeah, girl, go
It's
take a
like I
walk.
assure you, be with a family of 90 people. You'll learn to Irish goodbye. Like that's you'll learn to just be able to leave. You'll feel a little guilty, but there'll be a handful of people that you'll say goodbye to and then just fuck off.
Yeah. And that too, like go. And if you get there or you're there and it is overwhelming, fuck it, leave. You do not have to stay. You, this is not just for holidays. This is for any event, anything you ever go to do. There is nothing that says you have to stay unless it's a legal proceeding, in which case it's pretty explicit that you're not supposed to leave, right? Anything that is with friends, family, whatever, is it always like the best look? Is it ideal? Okay, maybe not, but is it worth it for your own mental health rather than sitting there for another 4 hours, dissociating and feeling like garbage?
Well, and
And now
again,
you feel like garbage for the next week because you put all this energy just into focusing so you can stay in this one location with these people you probably don't even like for 4 hours.
what is the phrase? It's like people that matter don't mind, and the people that don't matter mind.
Mm,
And
mm,
so it's like even like if I was hanging out, my mom drives her happy ass down here. Again, Ohio to Georgia, not a small drive. You lose a whole day driving just one
mm.
way. And if her and I are hanging out, or we have a handful of people over, because she loves the friends that I've made here, and the family, the found family I have here. But if it's like, if I were to get overwhelmed, if I fuck off, she's not going to hold that over my head.
Yeah.
Even for now, if she's in my own home and I fuck off and just leave her with some rando she don't know, she might be a little bit more upset. But also, my mother's never met a stranger, so that's
I was
also,
gonna say, not your mom should become friend
yeah,
with them in 30 seconds. Like, it's fine.
yeah. She will not lord the fact over my head that she drove 12 hours and only has a week or 4 days to spend with me, and I need to fuck off for 30 minutes because she
Mm,
gets it,
yeah.
and that's it's been something that we've talked about, but there's an understanding, and with all of the mental health work that I've done and the conversations I've had with her and the other people within my life, there's an understanding. And they also know that me as a person, I don't want to upset people. So
Yeah.
ultimately, if I decide that I need to leave for 30 minutes or even 10, that means I've pushed myself past several limits and boundaries that
Mm.
I've decided, okay, this is too much. I need to distance for a second.
It blows my mind sometimes how dedicated to our families of origin we are, that
Mhm.
most people are. Even people who are walking out of situations where they were severely abused, neglected, whatever, that cutting contact with family and not feeling a responsibility toward your family is not impossible for a lot of people. And here's the other thing to remember. It is a lot easier to love someone than it is to like someone. I love
Mm.
my family. I love all 100 and however many there are, even if I don't know their names, even if they're a cousin's kid who I've never even met. If they showed up at my door and were like, I'm in trouble, I need help, I'd be like, I love you, I am here for you. Like, what can I do? I I I have so much love for so many people. But do I like them? Liking people and loving people are two very different things. And I think when it comes to holidays, where we get caught up is that there's a lot of love for a lot
Mhm.
of people that we want to be connected for. There's a lot of caring, but there's not always the liking, and there's not always the like the people that we're giving love and caring to are not always the best people for us either,
Mhm.
right? Who are going to understand you need a break, you need those things. So that's why, just in general, it is so key to find your found family or your family, and to bring those people close to you who are going to support you through all of those things, and who are going to understand this holiday, all the holidays, whatever it is, family gatherings, like, this shit is tough. And so I would really love, I mean, I say this every time, like and subscribe and blah, blah, blah. But I just hope people share their stories too. Like we said
Mhm.
last time, like, what's the weird tradition that your family has? But like, what is maybe the tradition that your family is struggling to let go of? What is the thing that, like, you're not comfortable that happens? What makes the holiday so hard for you? Is it a mental thing? Is it working with other people? Like, there, I'm sure, is so much that we are not going to cover in any single episode, but in this one specifically, because life is hard, but talking about mental health should not be.